as you're getting closer to I-70. And so there's a passing lane that ends right on the rise of a hill. And so the dynamic we'll see is you'll have, say, a track on the right side, and the sign that shows you that the passing lane is ending will be on the right. So that might be in someone's blind spot. So they'll start to pass. And I don't know if they just haven't realized that the passing lane ends, but it ends right at the top of the hill. And I've seen a lot of near misses of people then all of a sudden realizing, oh, we're out of room. So I didn't know if it's ever possible to also have a sign on the opposite side of the highway for more visibility, that people can see that you're coming to something that's ending, or if it's just possible to put the ends of the passing lanes in places with a longer direction of where people have an opportunity to see it. But we just seem to have several that happen in whole blinded spots. So thank you, and apologies again if any of that was the wrong place.
Thank you. I mean, we can briefly answer some of those questions now, or we can get back to you about it. How do you want to do it?
Well, I think probably the best way would be to ask the region office to sit down with you guys.
Because they can.
These are all great questions.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that dialogue would be very
helpful.
Great.
And we actually can explain quite a few things. Not that.
No, I figure there's a method to the madness. We just don't know.
No. Absolutely great questions, but I just know I could see everybody nodding because there are some reasons why some things were done.
Yeah, no, and again, welcome to Moab, everybody. And then if you haven't had a chance to see you again, so I'm going to leave a few cards. If you come in, you want some tips. I hope whoever's looking for a good steak found it.
Okay, so you're good with that.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See, the region court was busily scribbling the questions behind them.
Yeah, they were busily nodding. Good. Next, please.
My name is Greg Halliday, and I'm from the Grand County Council. I'm a council member, sit on that council. I want to thank you, first off, for your support and your interest in helping us down here. It's a major, I mean, without it, we're having a hard time. Even though we're a Class 5 county, we're hosting anywhere from 20 to 50,000 people at a time. And so that is requiring us to provide services for a Class 3 or 4 county. And so that's putting a lot of strain on us. And most of these people are staying right in this area. So we got a huge county, and most of the people are staying in this area. So I want to personally thank you all for helping us with the roads and with being able to move people around efficiently. Let's see. I want to personally thank you for the improvements to SR 128. I live in Castle Valley, which is about 20 miles east of Moab. I drive 128 almost on a daily basis. And the difference from what it was to what it is now was just night and day. Really appreciate that. And I'm also looking forward to continuing to finish 128 on out to I-70. I think that's programmed. There's a couple of really dangerous areas on that road that really need to be addressed. But I'm looking forward to that, because whenever I go over to Grand Junction, that's the way I go. I take the other side of 128 and go all the way out. I would just like to commend your local UDOT manager, Mr. Randall. We had a major rock fall on 128 in October that completely blocked the road just below Red Cliffs Lodge. And we had some major rocks that were so big you couldn't pick them up with a loader. They were extremely efficient. They got right on it. They cleared the blockage within a couple of hours. And even though it did damage the road, sad to say, there was some major rocks. that came down, and they got the road repaired, and it's in great shape. So I wanted to personally thank Mr. Randall for doing that. And if I don't, and if I remember right, because I was there, I was personally there and watched the whole thing. He even came out from the other side with another loader and worked on both ends, because he had one of his men there that had a loader above the blockage, so they worked on it from both sides. So it was great. Really, really appreciate that. Anyway, I've been down here for about 13 years after retiring from the Army. I was born and grew up in Murray, so I've been in Utah all my life. I love this area and appreciate all your support and interest that you showed out here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well said. Thank you.
Thanks for your service as well.
Any other public comments?
Hi. My name is Liz Ballinger. I'm a Moab resident, and I'm very outside my comfort zone, so my apologies here to speak like this. I want to talk real briefly about the bypass, just a comment and a question. And I know it's very conceptual at this point, but I think it's important to talk about it while it's still a concept. Mm-hmm. And my fear, and the reason why I'm here, is that I think that you're probably hearing that everybody's really excited about it. There's a lot of people really pushing for it. This is what we want to do right now. And I just want to express that there are a lot of residents that are very concerned about it, are very not in favor of what's the most likely scenarios that are being presented right now, mainly using either the existing roads or a bypass in front of the West Rim. Both of these options are extremely impactful to neighborhoods in Moab. My question is a tunnel being considered as an option? An option like a tunnel is obviously a really high price to pay now monetarily, but any other options I feel are going to result in an unacceptably high price that Moab residents will be forever paying. Not to mention the recreationists and the very tourists that our town are trying to serve, many of whom enjoy the pipe dream trail that runs along one of the proposed bypass routes. So, I just wanted to hear from you, is a tunnel a potential possibility? It might seem like a crazy idea, but back in the day they made a tunnel 3 miles long for one potash train. Why can't we consider it now for a highway?
Well, I don't know, Carlos or you or Kirk wants to respond. We have talked about everything. We're happy to hear all different sides because it is conceptual, and we are talking about it, and a tunnel has been discussed.
Thank you.
And you're right, it is very expensive.
Well, the potash things built with private money too.
Yeah. Any other public comments?
Yes, please. Thank you so much for opening the floor to the public. My name is Emily Stock. I'm also a Moab resident, and I just wanted to kind of echo what Liz was saying. I live in the Mountain View neighborhood, and we've already started a coalition of people to get together to, bring information in opposition to the bypass, because we feel it would drastically impact our community. And I think that any option that is above ground will be fragmenting our communities. It's already, we do all this work for bike commuting and for increasing accessibility for locals, but I think a highway coming through our neighborhood would severely impact it. I guess that's it. There's a lot of things that we've been talking about that are floating, but since it is conceptual at this point, maybe I could just write you guys a letter and lay out some of those concerns that we have.
That would be very helpful.
Okay, great. Yeah, and some of those include things like the sinkhole and accessibility for locals and our personal transportation paths and stuff. So, yeah, thanks again for...
Thanks for your concern.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other public comments?
Good morning. Welcome to Southeast Utah. I'm representing the San Juan County Commission. I'm Ben Musselman. I'm the Public Works Director for San Juan County. First, they wanted me to let you know that all of the improvements in the projects and the planning is much noticed, and it's been a great improvement to the transportation in San Juan County and Grand County and for all of our residents. I'd also like to thank you for the ability that you've given to your shed operators. We work almost daily with Chet Johnson in the Monticello office, and the county and the state have a really good partnership there. It's really nice that we can do that, and it's a benefit to all of the people in the community. They asked me to come here to kind of put a potential project on the skyline for you guys that Phil is a major concern. It's on Highway 491. It's between milepost 7 and 8 at a county road. It's a B350. We call it the True Blood Road. We have had fatalities in our community in and around that intersection. There are no turning lanes and acceleration, deceleration lanes, anything of that nature. And along with the request to have it on the horizon there for you, we would be willing to, so long as it's not a federal aid project, the county is willing to provide what materials that we can and partner in transporting and working with UDOT to possibly facilitate that improvement to the 491 roadway corridor. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
We always welcome public-private partnerships.
We love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Are there any other public comments? Oh, this is unusual.
This is true. I haven't been here for a while, but I knew this was Shane's last meeting, and I just wanted to come and tell him thanks. He works really hard.
Jamie, you have to identify yourself.
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry.
Thank
My
you.
name's Jamie Evans. I'm from Utah County. And I knew this was Shane's last meeting, and I haven't been here for a while, but I just want to tell him thanks. He works really hard, and we don't always agree on everything, but he does work really hard to solve the problem. And it's okay not to agree all the time, but he has worked really hard, and he's going to be hard to be replaced. That's
Thank you.
the only comments I had.
Thank you. We all agree, Jamie. We all
Thank you.
agree.
Give him a hand.
It's the haircut.
Any other public comments? Okay, well, seeing none, we'll move along to the federal report. Ivan Marrero.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson and Commissioners. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. I also want to congratulate Shane on his retirement. You know, he has played a big part in making UDOT one of the premier, if not the premier, transportation departments in the nation. And I think that people of Utah should be very thankful to him for all his great services. Thank you. And congratulations. Thank you. I can't believe he's retiring so young.
Yeah.
I gotta get on that retirement system. I also want to thank Rick and his group for that great tour yesterday. That was amazing. I found myself just looking up at the cliffs, and luckily I didn't hit anybody. I do have some good pictures of Commissioner Kramer struggling to get up on that little steep section there when your bicycle lost power.
Yeah, when Shane would not give me his bicycle, but
nobody pushed you or anything. So,
yeah, but don't say the feds have never helped you.
That's right. I was just every step of the way.
We're here to help, right?
Yeah, thank you.
I have also congratulations to Jason for being the deputy director. Looking forward to working with you, Jason. I have 4 items to bring to the attention of the Commission this morning. The first one deals with patented and proprietary products. In case you didn't know, there are restrictions on what, we do not allow states to specify specific items on products. You can't say use guardrail from this company or use, basically we have to have free and open competition. However, we've heard that kind of has stymied innovation. So we have issued a notice of proposed rulemaking for consideration that may provide greater flexibility when it comes to proprietary products, or actually the two options are being considered. Either provide greater flexibility that will allow for the inclusion of more patented proprietary products into federal aid projects, or just do away with that regulation and allow them on projects. So that's out for comments, so that the public and the states are able to comment on that. The comments are due by January 14th of 2019.
Huh?
That's interesting. Second item for your attention, we published a final rule on the 29th of October. It kind of mapped the last two transportation bills, MAP 21 and the FAST Act, contain several provisions intended to expedite the processing of the environmental documents, requiring federal agencies to collaborate and to issue joint environmental documents, and kind of holding us to some of the commitments in those documents. So what this final rule does is kind of codifies those requirements, those provisions that were already in the law, and it puts them into our Code of Federal Regulations, so they are now codified. One of the big changes in there is that basically we can do a combined final environmental impact statement and a ROD. That should save about 30 to 90 days depending on the agency. It also brings the Federal Highway Administration, the Federal Transit Administration, the Federal Railroad Administration all doing the environmental documents the same way. You know, as you can imagine, states struggle when they had a federal highway project doing things without procedures, then a federal rail project doing it with their procedures, and the federal transit in their procedures. So now we're all supposed
You're integrated?
We're supposed to be doing it all the same way. So
okay.
So that word's supposed to.
Yeah, yes. So.
Capital
yes.
S.
But that's something we've been pushing as states for
many
years.
Yeah, and
states, yeah.
Well, I hate to say this with the federal government, but it makes sense.
They really couldn't do true multimodal environmental impact statements or environmental documents. We would tend to take them up through what we call the draft stage, and then we'd have to split them up and manage them as separate documents.
I was aware of that.
Formatting requirements and everything else, but they're all still underneath that. And so we've been pushing for this for years.
Yeah, it's something that the states have pushed for a long time, and we're finally be able to do it. And the final rule came out on the 29th. So you're welcome to read it. Yeah. The next item deals with truck parking. As you can imagine, the lack of adequate truck parking results in truckers driving longer than they need to, tired, and creates a safety issue. So the Federal Highway issued a memorandum that gives me as a division administrator the authority to increase the funding up to 100% if there are corridors where we determine that there are not sufficient public or private truck parking facilities. So if we were to have a corridor here in Utah where we think there's not enough public or private truck parking, I have the authority then to increase the funding to 100%, as opposed to 80 or 90, 92 point something.
We don't really need a state match.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, right. So that just came out a couple of weeks ago.
Do we have some places identified where that's from?
There's about 200 miles between St. George and Salt Lake.
Yeah. 200.
Our planning division of Terry has a truck parking study that they've been working on for years. There's areas we need to increase truck parking. This became much more critical with the new hours of service for the over-the-road truckers. And so within, you couple that with the electronic log requirements that are, make things more obvious. That has really brought to light the need for additional truck parking. And as we've talked about, we expect freight travel to continue to increase faster than actual vehicle travel across the country.
So Ivan, does that include space inside the right-of-way of the interstates? It's like we see them parked along the interstate.
Well,
Yeah,
but
that's the thing.
That's not where we're going to put truck
Oh, I see.
parking.
Right.
It's, if we were to expand existing rest area facilities, you know, we do a lot of work with public-private partnerships with fuel stations that are willing to provide additional services such as access to picnic and restrooms for people that, and no requirement to purchase things. We'll actually sign it on the interstate as a rest stop, as a rest area. And so we do things like that to try to increase that parking availability and services for the public.
Yeah, ideally we would build a truck parking facility so that truckers would not be parking on the side of the
I
highway.
was just thinking across I-80, across Mid-America, there was huge parking right inside the belt route, across Ohio and Indiana.
Yeah.
It's an interesting discussion to have because there's very large truck fueling companies that build facilities, and sometimes when the state's building facilities, it's competition to where they're trying to attract the trucks. So it's always an interesting dialogue on what's the best way to do this. But it's fundamentally it's a safety issue, and it's also an economic issue when you look at trying to move freight. So we see this as one of the true national purposes for a transportation system. So this is great news.
Yeah, and there are several types of federal funds that can be used for building truck facilities. However, this just allows us to provide you know, a greater percentage of the cost, 100%, up to 100%.
Good, that's great.
So the last item I have for the commission, it just want to make you aware that there is a rescission in the FAST Act that comes to effect on July 1st, 2020. Now, I will try to explain what a rescission is as simply as I can. Well, okay, so let's imagine that Utah is a pond. So every year, the federal government deposits 375 million fish in that pond. Those are National Highway Program, National Highway Performance Program fish, Highway Safety Improvement Program fish. There's CMAQ fish and so sprig fish, all kinds of fish. Species.
Lots of fish.
Species. So
this is getting fishy.
Okay. Is this being filmed?
Carp.
Okay. so
I'm sure this will be used in your leadership in Washington.
That's right. I'm sure. So we have all these fish in the pond deposited every year. However, Congress sets a limit on a catch limit on those fish. Which is usually around every year 93% or so. So it only allows Utah to catch 97% of those fish. That's called obligation limitation.
So the first was authorization.
Authorization, allocation, yeah. So I want to use a simple term. So that means that every year we have a few fish left over that we don't allow you to catch. Next year we come along, we throw in 375 million more fish, and only allow you to catch 97% of those fish. So after so many years, you're going to have a bunch of fish in there that you couldn't catch, unless you poach or whatever. Anyway.
Is that a federal
charge? None of that happens in Utah. So,
well, seeing as they have to authorize.
That's right.
Catch.
That's right. Yeah, those fish. Yeah, when you catch that fish, it comes through my office.
You're on a roll.
And I say you can take that fish with you. So anyway, so if you imagine after so many years, you're going to have a bunch of fish in that pond that you cannot catch, and we keep putting fish in the pond. So what Congress has done is taken away some of those fish. That's called the rescission. So they have decided with the FAST Act that they will be taking back some of those fish that are still there that you can't catch. So it amounts to, we estimate that Utah could be subject to $63 million worth of rescission. So
it's a lot of fish.
That's a lot of fish that will be taken back to.
Covering what period of time? Covering what period of time?
Well, it'll be a one-time.
From all of this stuff that was.
Yeah, it's just this fish has been sitting there for years since the last time.
And part of the challenge is if we were allowed to actually select what pots to take the rescission from, that would be nice. There's really limited flexibility, and there's certain categories that have been put off limits for us.
Right.
So like the local government's money that we pass through to the MPOs, they're the ones who struggle the most to actually obligate
And that's
their money.
off
They have the
limits.
highest amount of unobligated balance. The challenge is it's going to eat into the areas of our balance where it's actually going to be probably real money by 2020. We think around $9 million of real money impact to us at the end of the day. But we're continuing to work with Congress. I'll testify in another week and a half to EPW.
Yeah,
And
you
it'll
can feel
continue
free to
be
use my
our
fish
message.
example if you want.
No, you should patent your rescission.
Hopefully you
I've
guys
never
get-
heard
Seeing as
it.
the chairman is from Wyoming,
He might
appreciate it.
No, it's a baby.
And
It's really a sense, it's a give and take where they authorize at a higher level, but in order to, every year when they do the appropriations, they have to balance the, come close to. And so this is an attempt to like aim high and then pull back.
yeah, and we're working with. We've had several meetings with you that already trying to explain and then come up with maybe options that would help minimize the impact to Utah. So we're working on that.
It's the most unique definition of rescission I've ever heard. Yeah. And now if I ever hear it again, I'm going to think of a fish.
There you go. Everything with the federal government.
But thank you for explaining that because it is important and it is real money actually.
It is.
We anticipate it will be this time. Usually it hasn't been real money to us, but
Now, it sounds like
there's
it.
still time,
There's still time?
Yeah, definitely. Well, if there are no more questions,
No, thank you very much.
It's a great partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the UDOT scoreboard. Carmen and then Jason. Excuse me, Carmen Swanek and Jason Davis.
Thank you,
You're
Commissioners.
welcome.
I'm just going to give an update on project development at this point. I know that you've seen this dashboard in the past, so as of right now, for pre-construction advertising status, there's 5 past due projects. 3 of those have been advertised. It's just not reflected in this at this point, so you will see that different. 16 going to be advertised in the next 60 days. And then we have about 285 projects planned. But if you look, there are 555 projects that we have planned or in the works at this point in time. I looked at some of the numbers, and really we probably advertise at over 150 projects in a year.
so you guys are keeping us busy.
Yes, very busy. And so if you look at the performance, I mean, we're really meeting the schedules that we set forth. Going down here, this is the table that shows the project value versus the cost estimates. And this is from the previous month. As you can see, right now we seem to be in line with what the estimates we've prepared in the past. I think if you want to look at this one right here in red, I think we talked about this yesterday, where the estimate is coming in than what we previously thought, and that was the I-15 northbound design build project. So, but otherwise, we seem to be meeting in our targets. This is the advertising status. As you can see, we have been advertising on time or early on some of these projects, even going out to July. There's a few past due, but going back to that number of projects, you can see how many projects in the purple that are even in scoping at this point and that we have planned. And if you have any questions as I go through these, please ask.
So she could drill into those.
If you would
show
like
actually
to.
which projects make up that list. And you could do it too, it's on our webpage.
Right.
Yes. Getting into the construction contracts. So this is really showing combined number of projects under construction with the contract payments being made. So if we look into November, there's 168 projects. We have paid out about 845 million, with about 520 remaining in those contracts. So anybody has questions for that, but we seem to be on target with where we average even, throughout the year.
It follows last year's cyclical.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, we're in that closing, shutting down of projects mostly. Pretty much asphalt projects, we have a requirement after the October 15th date that it has to be 50 degrees and rising for the contractor to be paid. Otherwise, we're not going to get density. So, leading up to that date, and now for our resident engineers, it's a day-by-day decision what type of work we can do.
Now, the concrete can go year-round, right? Because you
Yeah,
just change the mix depending what the weather is.
Right.
And they have some requirements to, put blankets over it and such, because they can work that year-round.
They baby the concrete.
They baby it.
Going into contract payments, pretty standard for this time of year. It was about $90 million last month that we paid out. And November, you can kind of see some of the values coming in already. And I look back at some of the past numbers, and that seems pretty standard to be about that 90 million. Going into this graph, it's more or less the time that's elapsed in on the contract and have the project being complete. We're really on target there. We have 98% in which the projects are being completed on time.
Yeah, that's really astounding, the construction role. Congratulations.
And this is the last, where am I? Okay, the last performance or update is contract award versus engineer's estimate. And within, if we look back at last month in October, you can see that the contract amount is somewhat higher than the engineer's estimate. But I think, again, that's kind of accounted for some of the escalation that we've seen in prices of materials, as well as some of the resources being limited due to the number of projects we have out. So it was expected that we could see that.
Actually, that's really good compared to what we're seeing in the private sector construction costs. They're using tariffs as an excuse, and there's a lot.
You said that.
Yeah.
So that really covers an update from project development at this point. I'm welcome to take questions, but we seem to be on target.
Any other questions?
No, it's great.
Thank you, Carmen. That was very complete.
Thank you very much.
This is a harder one. I don't mean it that way. It's always fun to talk about
Morning,
fatalities. Good morning.
I just need to say 25 years, and that was the most entertaining FHWA discussion I've heard.
It was the first time I understood your decision. But then last year, I'm like, yes! That's why I'm Fisher retired.
Teach a man to fish. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Give him a fish.
teach a DOT to fish, and
Exactly.
They take it away.
okay. So I agree. This is a much harder discussion. The other one's about the progress and everything the department's making and improvements. We hope that at some point this is going to be a much easier discussion. As you can see, we're at 86.6% for our overall score for statewide on our safety index. It has dropped a little bit, and it's dropped because our fatalities have gone up quite a bit over the last couple months, and have eclipsed our target. So our target's 227. That would be a 2.5% reduction, and our actual fatalities for this date were at 239 at the end of October. It's not a number that we have an opportunity to meet our goal, but everyone has to take an active role in driving safely the rest of the year.
Jason, could you go back one slide?
You bet.
Because what I'm seeing there is a little different. Let's see why. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're looking at taking the UDOT fatalities graph off of this in the future, because we've been zero for more than 5 years now, and we're going to continue to be zero.
Jason, maybe just remind the commission that 86% number is a composite of the things you're talking about here. So
it is. So as I go down here through these charts, we have different weightings for different measures.
You guys were involved through decision lines and helping set some of those weightings.
So obviously the fatalities number is a very high weighting, and then it kind of goes down from there. And to maybe take the lead a little bit from Ivan, his presentation, you think about these as different classes. You know, fatalities, injuries, those are the AP classes, employee injury rate, versus the equipment damage rate, maybe a little bit more like PE. So it doesn't have the same weighting. But as you look at this, our serious injury crashes, they're pretty close to our target, 792 versus 808. And then our employee injury rate is one that I take a lot of pride in what we've accomplished. So our target was 4.29. That's per 200,000 hours of employees working. Yeah, if I move it, kind of you lose part of the top. But anyway, so this is the employee injury one. So we were at 4.29. We were meeting that goal. So he says, you know what? We're going to set a higher standard for ourselves. We can do better. And so we lowered our goal to 3.52. And that immediately resulted in us peaking and going back up. But since we've come back down. And so we're below a much harder target to get to, and we continue as a department to drop as far as those numbers go, and that's something to be pretty proud of. That's our employees looking out for each other and looking out for hazards and fixing them before something happens. As you go down, the crashes, they tend to lag, if you'll recall, because the data doesn't come in as quickly and there's so much more compared to traffic fatalities, but it's still always an overwhelming number to look at it. You know, last year there was almost 63,000 crashes in the state.
That's a calendar year, right? So yes. As we're looking at, as we get closer to the end of 2018, yes. Okay,
but we tend to lag about 2 months behind.
On the crashes. On the fatalities are more up to date.
Yeah. And then as you can see, our equipment damage rate, which is this one right here, we tend to have a peak during the winter months as our snow plows are out there. There's a lot more conflict opportunities, because this isn't just us as the cause of the damage. This could be someone running into our plows. This could be as we remove snow, it knocks over a fence or a mailbox or something like that, and we have to pay for those repairs. This is something we continue to put some focus on. But first and foremost, we're concerned about our employees' injuries and safety. And now we're being focused a little bit more on the equipment damage part of this. So that's the presentation for this morning.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jason?
Jason, how many days out of the year is there zero fatalities?
Approximately 50% of the days every year are zero fatalities.
So yeah. With the fatalities being higher than last year, that means that we've had incidents with multiple deaths.
Yes.
Driving this thing.
We had that horrific accident on Highway 40 between Heber and Park City that resulted in 6 fatalities and one crash. That was a dump truck. Yes. I was just reading recently.
I drove through it right after it happened.
You know, they have charged that individual with automobile homicide on 6 counts. And I believe he was 4 times the legal limit under the influence. influence.
Yeah, under one of Jason's divisions, motor carrier, they did an investigation of that company as well.
And they were lacking in several categories of mean requirements for their company. So motor carriers will go in, and this isn't just on every fatality. Throughout the whole year, they're going and visiting companies, checking to make sure that they're doing the right safety training, they have the certifications, their equipment checks are all up to date.
Drug and alcohol policies.
So, and this company was lacking on several of those they found. So.
Interestingly, as a commissioner, I've had several comments after the Prop 2 vote on medical marijuana as to the impact based on what's happening in Colorado and some other states with increased DUI, as it were, problems. Is that something that we...
So we do track that. We've looked into that along with our partner DPS. The data can be used in multiple ways depending on which side of the fence you want to argue it from. There are definitely some statistics that show that it is increasing crashes, but there's also those that show that the increase, if you look at it from a rate perspective, and we've discussed our fatality rate and how even though our numbers may go up, our rate stays the same or goes down, and that the rate is not changing substantially from the legalization in those states. So I think more time and more data will give us a better picture of what's going on there.
I still think cell phones and texting, I mean, sure appreciate the message and reminds. That is what I see when I'm doing something dumb and you look over there and they're on their cell phones.
And I did bring it up, but Commissioner Kramer started this discussion, so I saw that Representative Scott Moss again is bringing up the a cell phone bill to basically a hands-free bill. And it'll be interesting to see how that moves forward, because I do believe that distracted driving is having a substantial effect.
Sure, by observation.
A drastic effect on our fatality numbers. And it's something we can all do ourselves to impact that. And it's hard. It's not easy. It's easy to do. It's hard to make the change.
It sure is. Well, every one of us have a lanyard that says "Don't drive stupid," and there's just too much of that around. And I'm telling my kids, wear your seatbelts. I mean, they've been raised that, but still, it is not easy. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the minutes.
I so move.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Madam Chair, can I
Yes,
ask
sir.
a question here? Was that motion to approve the consent agenda or just the minutes from the consent agenda?
The minutes from the consent agenda. I thought we were going to discuss. We can just do the whole agenda?
Well, just the consent portion of it. It's just what you normally do.
Okay.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
And my second
Thank
is
you.
for the consent agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ivan. He's here to discuss the 2019 STIP amendment.
Morning, Commission.
Good morning.
So are we okay with the TAP project and the consent agenda portion?
Yes, I was just
If there was any questions.
moving along. There weren't any questions.
Okay.
So we're going to move past the project returning funds and award, part of the consent agenda. It does still show us our table of the different programs, the funding that we have returning from this consent agenda, as well as the pending programming items. And we will move. This one was part of the consent agenda. Our first item is with Region 1. This is an interesting project. It's an interesting request. from previous commissions, we've talked about how we take state funding and swap that funding with local governments' federally received funding. Allows them, the requirements of the delivery of the project, of the actual requirements on the roadway may stay extremely high, but the requirements on the administration of the project delivery changes and allows local governments to handle those projects better. So on this particular project, Region 1 is requesting to exchange state TIF funding for federal funds with 8 cities. The project 13822 is currently funded with $175 million of state transportation improvement funds. And I'm going to scroll down to our table here that shows the 8 projects, the federal aid amount for each one of those eight projects, and the exchange rate of 85% that those cities will be receiving.
So there are 5 cities included?
There's 8 cities that are included in this.
Okay.
In this exchange. And this also included, and I'm sorry, I'm going to end up scrolling a bunch on our presentation. Each city has a letter from either the city mayor or the city manager requesting this exchange. And at the bottom of our letters, we have a map that shows. Zoom out a little bit. It shows the location of these eight projects within Region 1.
Are there any questions for Ivan on this?
It's a very busy part of the world.
I've looked this over. I'll make a motion to approve.
A second? Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you. Our second item for today, Region 2 is requesting to add betterment and city funding to the 4100 South project. This also is an interesting project in that while we're coming to the Transportation Commission to request approval to add these funds, this is a city project that will be delivered by the city. The money that we're adding is the city funding as well. So this is not state money that will be changed on this project. Is all the city that is handling this.
Thank you for the explanation. Are there any questions? I propose a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Item number 3, Region 3 is requesting to increase $1.5 million to PIN 13742. It is the SR 43 milepost 0 Easterly to Wyoming. It is a pavement project that Region 3 will be taking some of their unprogrammed pavement money to address some safety and drainage issues.
Are there any questions about this?
I'd move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, item number 4, Region 3 is requesting to add $800,000 to PIN 13363. It's Vernal to Naples on US 40. It's currently funded at $2.69 million. Region 3 would like to add some of their unprogrammed pavement funds to this project in order to award a construction contract that came in over the engineer's estimate. When we received these estimates, we reviewed the estimates that we received and determined that even with the current contingency funds that were available on this project, we still needed to go ahead and add more money. And we also determined, based on the bids received, that taking it and rebidding it would not get us any better pricing. So it was determined to add, or request to add $800,000 to this project.
Okay, are there any questions?
Just a question. So in a case like that, they find out that there's these other things were unknown, that we didn't know about, that they showed in the bid, and that's what we agreed with them. We go back and look at it. We're saying, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. We do have,
Let's allow
Matt can come in.
So, come on up, Matt. We want to
You
make
made
sure we
all
get you
those
on.
extra work.
No, that's a very good question.
All right, my name's Matt Parker. I'm the program manager for Region 3. This project in particular had 130 ped ramps with a bunch of tie-ins to local roads, and so we did not get the efficiency that you would get out of a typical open highway microsurface project. So there's a lot less efficient use of the equipment, so we saw some higher prices in the microsurfacing. And then we also saw some, we had an estimate that included pavement removal or paint removal, and it was actually tape. So we kind of missed some of that. So if we had gone and rebid that one, we would have seen those higher prices.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the
That gives
explanation.
you the ability to say, there's a reason you drove it?
Yeah.
So I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
I just wanted to add again, this is an example, last month when we did that tour, I had no idea where Naples was until now, but just the fact we saw
You know,
it.
that's a good point. The tours are invaluable that way. Motion passes.
Thank you, for sure.
Lou, everybody knows it's in Italy.
That's what I was thinking.
We're gonna go there.
That was okay.
The things you learn.
I think it's funny, yeah.
Okay. Item number 5, Region 4 is requesting to add $1,350,000 of state TIF funds and $400,000 of Washington County funds to the Northern Corridor BLM right-of-way application support PIN, which is currently funded at $575,000. The TIF funds are available through the statewide transportation infrastructure, and the $400,000 comes from Washington County.
I'll make this motion.
Oh, okay. Are there any questions at all?
Second.
Nope. Okay. There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arvin. Corridor Preservation, Charles Stormont. And Diane McGuire.
Good morning, Commissioners. I understand
Good
the
morning.
last time we were in Moab, my predecessor had a little bit of a wardrobe challenge and could not locate a tie in Moab. But I am pleased to report that Moab has stayed very true to itself, and you still cannot find a tie in Moab at 9 a.m. on a Friday morning. Really,
tradition.
I think we should ban ties in Moab.
Yeah.
I think you would have
We've been working with a worldwide viewing audience of this broadcast today.
Charles, move along right away.
Very quickly, an update on the, can you get the item 8? The preservation budget and obligations. The Mountain View Corridor reimbursement that we discussed at our last meeting has been finalized, and that's reflected in the balance coming forward of $18.3 million. Diane is currently working on some reimbursement requests to the Highway 89 project in Davis County. That $10 million is kind of an approximation of where we expect that to land. There's some details to be worked out there, but we put a placeholder. Had a little over $500,000 in revenue, a little over $6.5 million in property purchases and expenses. The largest one, the Sotheby acquisition, I would point out the funds have been obligated. They're in escrow. We're working through a minor easement issue with them, so that's not quite closed, but we expect that to happen in the very near future. That would leave a fund balance of a little over $22 million. We have a little over $8.3 million of approved acquisitions in process, leaving a fund balance of just over $14 million. Oh, I apologize.
There you
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So those are.
And then we have just under $6.9 million in requests today that would, if approved, would leave a balance of approximately $7.169 million. Any questions on the fund balance?
No.
Moving into item 8A, our first request for approval. This involves a parcel at 4035 West California Avenue in Salt Lake City. So this is 40th West and give or take
12th South and Bangor Highway. The property is approximately 5.4 acres. As we scroll down to a map of the parcel, see if I can zoom out just a hair. It's this parcel here. Bangor on this is running from left to right. North is pointing to our right on this image. The parcel has an access point in this area that I'm scrolling around with a mouse. I hope you can see that. And had a buyer or interested tenant approach them to construct an office building on this parcel when they went to Salt Lake City to seek the beginning of the approval process. To start the beginning of the approval process, Salt Lake City said, Bangor's going to be expanding in that area, please talk to Diane. She has worked with the property owner. We have an appraised value of $3.24 million on this approximately 5.84 acre parcel. It would be our request that we be granted approval to proceed with that acquisition of the parcel in total. Because the access point would be eliminated by the future Bangor project, an acquisition in full would be appropriate.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
Thank you. Item 8B involves 4 condominium units and an 8 condominium unit property at 3630 West South Jordan Parkway in South Jordan. I'll scroll down so you can see where this building is approximately relative to the future project. This is just north of 106 South. And here's an image of the condo unit. Diane has spoken with the owners who have indicated a willingness to sell the 4 top units. She's working with the 4 bottom units, but that hasn't quite progressed as far. What we would like to do is proceed with the acquisition of those 4 units. We reviewed the leases with each of those. We would turn those over to our property management team and then be in a much better position to work with those tenants as the project moves forward. The office condos combined have 4,382 square feet of rentable area. The building sits on 1.29 acres. The appraisal for these 4 units, it's actually 4 separate appraisals, but the total for each of the units would be $1,652,000. We would request approval to proceed with the acquisition of those 4 units, and Diane will continue to work on the other 4 units on the bottom floor.
So is that common ownership?
That would be, we would be acquiring each of the condominium units, which would include rights to some of the common areas. We would hope to eventually acquire all of the units so that we would hold title to each of the units and all of the common area.
Not each $1 million.
That's correct. It's a total.
It's a total.
Correct. The combined of the 4 appraisals is $1,652,000.
All 4 parcels owned by the same entity?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. They have different tenants, but they are all owned by the same entity.
Thank you.
Okay. Good question. Any other questions?
I have one. So this looks like a sister building sitting to the north of it. As if we look at this.
It's a similar situation there. Diane is working with them. Their rental situation is different. Their tenant situation is different, so they're not quite as ready to proceed with a discussion with us, but she is working with them.
Okay, so this is a half bite of the apple then?
That's correct. Or given the 2 pieces, maybe a quarter bite at the whole apple.
And the part that's outlined in blue, is that doesn't play into this discussion at this point in time. We're just talking about the part that's written, that's colored green.
As purchasers of the condominium, we would have rights to that common area, but they would be shared with the other 4 condominium owners.
Okay.
We would hope to eventually merge title and all of that in UDOT if we're able to succeed with the other 4.
That makes sense. Are there any other questions? Entertain a motion.
Move for approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes.
Item 8C is a parcel just to the north of the one we were just discussing at 3667 West, 102nd South in South Jordan. Vacant land currently owned by LH South Jordan LLC. The UDOT requires about half an acre for the project because this parcel has not yet been developed. We would only be acquiring a strip. The appraisal concludes some severance damages as a result of the proposed project. arising primarily, I'll scroll up one, out of some changes to access just below this image on 106 South. A raised median will be going up as part of the interchange project that's proposed here. The combined concluded acquisition and damages to the property would be $493,000 for the portion needed by UDOT, and that would be our request to the Commission for approval to proceed with that acquisition.
Any questions?
Boy, land values are sure going up.
You
$2
know,
million an acre.
that's a lot.
A lot of money.
Includes
Certainly
damages as
is.
well.
Yeah, that does include some severance damages because of the raised median.
This is Utah.
Well, at least we're not talking about fish. So
A theme has emerged here.
Sorry, a theme has emerged, is right. I'd entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes.
And item 8D, the last corridor preservation item that we have today, is approximately 19 acres on the SR 73 project that we've spoken about at some of our more recent commission meetings. This is an acquisition from the Allred family. I will scroll down so you can see the portions being acquired. They have just under 41 acres in total. We would be acquiring approximately 19 of them. There's a small portion on one side of the freeway, approximately 1 acre, and then another 18 below. The concluded appraised value of the acquisition would be $1.482 million, a little bit lower price per acre. I think that factors in a little bit because of that 1 acre to the north that would have some development problems, but that's the overall concluded value by the appraisal that we have on this acquisition. And again, that would be our request to the Commission's approval to proceed at that appraised value.
Okay. Are there any questions?
We've purchased a lot of property from already along this SR 73. I move for approval.
Thank you, Wayne.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you,
Thank you.
Charles. And Diane, it was complicated this time. It seems a little bit more. Okay, moving on to the funding request, and I'm going to first call on Shane Marshall to discuss the TIF funding request, and then Charles, if you'll just wait.
Thanks, Chair. This is a fairly unique request. This request would typically be something that Ivan would present to the Commission. This is in addition to a project. So the plan would be, the request would be to move money from a right-of-way surplus account. So when we sell property, the money comes in and we put it into an account. It just kind of stays there until we use it. So the money would come from there into the regular project to make this purchase. So typically it would be discussed by Ivan. In this case, we're having Charles do it because it's for a specific right-of-way purchase. The project is underfunded to make this purchase, and Charles is going to go through and explain to the Commission why we want to make this purchase as opposed to just a partial acquisition. But the money is available in the fund. We have about $9 million currently in that surplus fund, and this would take 2 of it out. But the idea being that we would purchase this property, eventually sell it, and the money would go back into the surplus fund, not into the project. So it's a little bit unique, but it makes good financial sense. So with that, I will.
Are there any questions for that, Carlos?
Questions on what Shane just said, because we're constantly selling properties. I mean, that's an ongoing process within the department. And as we sell those properties, that money goes back into either the transportation fund, if that's where the project was funded, or in this case, the transportation investment fund. And so that money sits there, and then when the legislature comes around next year, they'll reappropriate that back into that corresponding fund. The commission manages monies within those funds, and so this would be, the recommendation is to access that color of money essentially, but it's all contained within either the transportation fund or the transportation investment fund.
It's interesting. It's different. Well, it reminds me of the Russian dolls, kind of, but it's still under one big doll.
Yeah, when you look at the budget that we have for DOT, you know, we're comprised essentially of our federal funds, transportation funds, which is state gas tax. So
Yeah.
the federal funds is primarily the federal gas tax, 18.4 cents on regular fuel, 24 cents on the diesel fuel, and there's some other revenue sources that touch it. But those are the two primary ones that fund the federal funds. Transportation fund, primarily the state gas tax and vehicle registrations is the big dog there. Excuse me. We have the Transportation Investment Fund, primarily the state sales tax portion that funds the the major capacity projects that you guys select. And then we have an aeronautics fund, which is mostly FAA money, but it also consists of state aeronautic money that we heard some of that money that you had allocated yesterday to the Moab Airport. Those are the primary funds that the legislature appropriates to and that we all work out.
It's good to be reminded of that because it's confusing. So, Charles.
With that, you can see here the areas that are needed for the project. The area in red is needed in fee. The area in yellow is a temporary construction easement. I'm just going to scroll down so you can get a little bit better view of the entire parcel as a whole, because that's what we're proposing this funding request to support. The reason that we wanted to come to you and make this request is the landowner has come forward with an appraisal suggesting that it would be entitled to $1.345 million for the acquisition value and damages to the parcel. A lot of the damages that they have claimed would arise out of changes to visibility. You can see in this first image what the property looked like at the intersection with Bangerter at 54th. In the before condition, and from approximately the same area in the after condition. A couple of other examples of that. Here we are again from a different, from the south in the before condition, and you can see now with the overpass that there is absolutely no visibility other than the tops of the light poles. And for a retail parcel, that's an important issue. Another image from the other side, and coming down, no visibility in the after construction time. There are also changes to access that they have claimed would impact the value and damages to the remaining parcel. Working with our surplus property team, we believe that we could actually work with the property. Taylorsville is working on some redevelopment. In a fairly short period of time, we believe we would be able to turn this parcel over to the surplus property team and really mitigate the risk to UDOT of potentially paying significant damages and acquiring almost no property, as opposed to acquiring the property in total, working with our professional team and selling it on the market, in the open market, and mitigating and minimizing the cost to UDOT in the overall period. There would be a short holding period. There is a tenant on the parcel with a lease through December 2019, so there would be a little bit of income to UDOT that we would turn over to property management. And so our request is really a risk mitigation and cost mitigation effort. I feel that it would benefit UDOT in the long run. It would eliminate risk and exposure for both UDOT and the landowner, and that's the basis of our request today.
So can I have one
Please.
thing to that as well? So we're here today to ask the commission to move money from a fund to another fund so that UDOT can make the decision to purchase the property. Not necessarily asking the commission if we can purchase the property.
Yeah, just to move the money.
It's just a unique request, one that I don't think that I've seen us make at all. But
I don't remember any.
I understand we've done one or two of these in the past. That's what Diane has told me, but I haven't been a part of those, so I'm not sure where they were. The appraisal, we have a number of appraisals on this property. The total values range anywhere from 1.7 to 2.5 million. Our most current appraisal puts it at 2 million even. The landowner has indicated they would proceed at that and waive their rights of first refusal. I believe we could, I don't know that we could sell it for that much on the open market, but we could come close. We feel, that's what my surplus property team reports to me. And rather than run the risk through litigation that we might have to pay significant damages and only acquire the red portions in total, we think this would be a much better way to proceed. This is a very unique situation. You don't typically see that kind of a damage claim on this.
Well, it's a strategic situation.
It may be unique, but it makes a lot of sense. I'll make a motion to approve it.
Good.
I'll second.
Are there any other questions at this time, though?
If you don't buy this, do you give the money back?
I'm sorry, say that again?
If you don't do this, do you put the money back?
When we surplus the We will proceed with this, and if we don't, we would come back and let you know where we would want the money to go back. But
Essentially, the money will surplus back, default back to that same.
Yeah, well, your comment on color of money made me think maybe. Who knows, maybe.
We have talked directly with the Landowners Council. They have indicated in writing that they would accept $2 million on ordinary terms that UDOT uses. This is a council we work with on a regular basis on these types of issues, so I feel very confident we'd be able to proceed with the acquisition, and if not, we would certainly come back to the commission and report.
Okay. So it requires commission approval to move the money from one account to the other.
Exactly. And then UDOT chooses to do it.
Had the project been, if we had more contingency in the project, we would have made the purchase outside of this action. The project is short on funds, therefore we need more funds.
Thanks for that extra question. Thank you.
No, that was a good question, though.
In order to make this purchase, you'll be back again to approve the purchase?
No.
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 No. As soon as we vote on this, it's done.
99% of the property purchases we do are done under projects you've approved. You guys just approved the quarter preservation funds.
This simply enables it.
We do about 1,000 acquisitions a year.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, seems like more than that.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you for the explanations.
Charles, thank you for all your work. It's great to work with you. Wayne and I had that pleasure being on that committee. It's just well done.
I still think, good point. Still think Ivan's ahead in explanations, though.
Yeah, I'll work fish into the next one.
And I'll have an extra tie in my trunk.
Waiting for the show.
Oh, Bill Lawrence, how nice to see you. Annual accomplishments, conditions, and needs report.
So, Madam
Stewardship.
Chair, while Bill's coming up, just to remind the commission what goes on here is we're working our way towards our annual commission workshops, which we conduct in two pieces: March staff update, and also we spend most of staff update in July, almost a full day, April, excuse me, going through information. What we want to do is throughout the year we have our different division leaders come and talk about the condition of the system. And, so needs and also accomplishments, what they've been able to accomplish with the money that the commission has provided. So this is all information that will hopefully be helpful to the commission to make funding decisions leading up to the next STIP workshop. This information is all provided in an online workbook for the commission. I'm looking at Bob and Ivan that we're maintaining. They're ignoring me.
They're talking about fish.
The commission workbook is part of the needs and condition reports. We build that in every month, right? And the commissioners know how to get to that. So maybe send them out a link of where that's at, if you would.
We're fine. Thank you for bringing that up. And this is informational, again, which I'll remind everybody. Thanks, Bill.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. I'll be in a different role.
Yeah.
I've got a presentation. I'm going to go through that presentation, but before I go to the presentation, I want to first go just right to our website and show you guys, because I think it'll be beneficial to see, because most of this information is readily available online. So I'm just going to go right to our website. If I can get it, and shut that one down. And I'm going to go back from this.
The home is there.
Oh, it's home in there.
To the left, is at the bottom.
Oh, is that home right there?
No.
I'm going to close that one down. Right there.
The top.
Okay, so this is udot.utah.gov.
Yep, so here's the home page, which everybody can get to. So if you come down and you click on strategic direction, that brings up the department's 3 strategic goals that we have. And we talked about today, we went through the zeros. You have the optimized mobility. The payment area is over here in the preserve infrastructure. If I click on the preserve infrastructure, it brings up, so I did this morning, I got nervous, I saw it's going to be down. I'm like, oh no, but it's not. It's coming up though. So don't get on November 17th, 6 p.m. in the morning, I think it is, so day. It won't work then. So if you look at the goal the department has for preserve infrastructure, our current, we're meeting our expectations there for that at 100%. The pavements,
You know, I've always thought that pavements were connected by dots called structures, and the pavement's the main system, but then I kind of felt bad here because bridges actually is 38% of the target. So we're kind of just a little bit less, our tactical measures roll up into that measure.
So again, the commission, senior leadership, we all sat together in a workshop, went through a decision lens exercise to basically weight the different strategies to come up with that overall composite measure of 100%. And give you an idea, we have about an asset value. We're going to go through asset value, Bill. $35 billion.
I have that in the presentation. I'll bring that up.
Oh,
so
good.
We'll do that.
35 billion, my goodness.
So we have tactical measures that feed into this, and those tactical measures for the pavement side I'm just going to touch on real quick. But before I do have this in my presentation as well. So I will skip through these quickly on my presentation because I want to cover it here. When we look at pavement for the department, you've all heard that philosophy of good roads cost less. And so if you look at this chart's really a great chart to kind of summarize that. So when we build a project, it's at time 0. So here's the life of the project there. And then the condition is at 100%. It's all good, brand new, right? So then as we go through time, the pavement deteriorates. And if we did nothing, it would keep deteriorating as you go through the years, and it'd finally get to the point to where we have to reconstruct it, have to build a new road. The good roads cost less philosophy is that you do the right treatment at the right time. In doing so, you look at this example here, in about 7 years, if we do a preservation job on a dollar for dollar basis, you spend about $1 compared to waiting to the reconstruction would be $25. That buys you, it never gets it back up to where it was originally, but it does give it additional life, and you can stretch that curve out for another length. Then if you do a rehab job, again, you bump it back up to a higher level of condition. That cost is less than if you reconstruct it, and again, you can stretch that pavement out. So the goal is to optimize the system, to do the right treatment at the right time, so that we maximize the dollars spent and maximize the condition of the system as a whole. That's that whole philosophy in that. So this, yes?
So is like preservation like a crack seal, or what would, just high level, what would be versus the grinding down?
Yes,
and
it's
resurfacing?
based on the depth of surface treatment that you do. I'm going to show you what that information is, but I believe it's 1.5 to 2 inches is preservation, and then below that to about 4 to 5 inches is rehab, and below that's reconstruction.
Thank you.
And I have those definitions, and I'll show you where they're at so you can look at them. So as a statewide, our tactical measure for the pavement is based on IRI.
Yeah.
That's called it's the International Roughness Index, and what that is, it's a measure of the profile as you go down the road. So it's what you feel basically as you drive down the road, and we relate that to condition. We have other measures that we also collect at the same time, but this is the one that we use just to kind of give us the overall look. Are we heading in the right direction as far as condition goes?
So the difference between the runway and the taxiway yesterday when we were on the bus.
Yeah, actually, exactly.
Good example.
Good example is right.
So our go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so IRI is something that has been chosen at a national level that we can compare across states. It's a measure that all states have been doing for a long period of time. It's also one that the public feels seat of the pants type of thing. But they use a lot of other measures, overall condition index, which is a composite of things like cracking, environmental distress, to help make those engineering decisions on what's the right treatment, where their recommendations come from.
This is really just the high-level look to say, are we heading in the right direction? But the decisions are made on a bunch of other data. So our goal is 80% to be in good, which is the green, or fair, which is yellow. Then the amount of poor condition that we have is the red. That's what we use for the statewide level. Now we take these and we break these down into low volume and high volume roads, and we also break it down into each of the regions. And I want to skip over to that too. I think that's it on this part I wanted to do. So if I jump out of this. So
So this is back to that strategic direction page that you clicked off the main page. So this is one click away. I want to scroll down. This gives me a warm fuzzy when I go past this though, but we're not going to stop there.
Because you put a lot of time in it. Just go up.
Rightly so.
But no, because that's, for the commissioners, that section on the right, you can find every project that we have in a GIS format, design or construction. You can see projects that are not yet funded, but the priorities have been set by you. The left page is a presentation format that talks about the different funds that I talked about earlier, and will help you see where the revenues come from and the expenses.
But the good stuff, don't just
No, keep going.
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry. So on the right there, say that again, please.
Well, the left-hand side is a funding prezi, which actually describes all the different fund types that we have that comes in the department and where they get distributed. That's the easiest way to say that.
The right side shows all the projects.
The right side is the projects.
Thank you.
Okay. So down in the middle of this, we've got a materials and pavement, we call them tiles. I'm going to click on that. So we have central materials pavements tile, and underneath this tile we have all the different sections within this area, but the one that deals with the pavement management is the pavement management section. So I'm just going to, so if you clicked on the materials and pavements tile, scroll down to the pavement management, and you click on the picture, this is where all the good stuff comes. Because I mean, there's a lot of detail that you get, and I can even drill down. We can go as deep as you want to go through this stuff. So we have performance measures. This is the high volume pavement condition. So this is only looking at the high volume roads. And when I get in my presentation, there's some definitions I want to cover. High, low volume roads I want to cover. I want to cover AADT, centerline mile, surface areas, and that will all make sense. And when you come back in, you'll be able to see what this is. This is again based off of centerline mile. This is the high volume. Earlier today, we talked about the low volume and its condition, and it was the impetus for getting the additional $40 million a year for the low volume roads. If you look back in 2013, and you look at and I wish the trend was further back, because we do have information for that, but not for the chart. But you can see the trend was coming down 13, 14, 15 is still below where we wanted to be for the target. 16, I believe we had a partial year's funding of the new gas tax, and then 17 was a full year funding, and 18, 19, and 20 we have the full year of the $40 million in funds. And you can see based on the projected data, what we'll be able to do is that those conditions are going to get better and better. Now I just did get, we do the payment condition every year. Collection, it's a contract, goes out this year with the contract was through Mandley. They collect a whole bunch of different data, but on the IRI data, they're showing that for this year, and they've got this Tuesday, we just got the data back from them, they collect this year. And that's another thing to be aware of, is just the timing of the information. So we program a project, the project gets built, we collect the data on that project. It was built the following year, right? So you're already 2 years behind on just getting that information. So this data that we're getting right here is really off of the projects that were built in the 2017 year. Okay, but we're showing that, and these are preliminary, they'll probably change this a little bit, but we're showing from 2017 to 2018 that the good increases by 2%, the fair decreases by, looks like about 2%, and then the poor decreases by about 1%. And so we're heading in the right direction from the data. Again, they're going to put that in the system and massage it and go, and I'm probably taking way too much time. I'm going too slow. Sustainability index, I'll cover that in my presentation, so I'm going to skip that for right now. What I wanted to go, this right here is hot off the press, it's pavement management site, and this is good information. Over here we've got some tabs. This will allow you to click in, you can go to statewide, you can go to each region, you can go to the condition data itself, click on, I don't know, maybe I'll open that one up. So it brings up a map with the condition data, loads it, and so if you come down here and say, like one that's got a red, And I've not pre-planned this, so we'll see what we get here. So you got that particular section has got a pour because it's red. And so you got an overall condition index of 49, fatigue cracking at 88. So it's got a lot of fatigue cracking. So this is some of that other information that we're collecting. We collect the faulting, spalling, slab cracking, all from that Manley truck. Now that is I don't know, it's a really cool vehicle. You think, how can a vehicle driving, road speeds collect crack information? I had a graduate course at the University of Utah. The doctor is Dr. Jose Lee, and we went through the analysis how they do that. So it basically takes a picture of the pavement. That's a color picture. It takes that picture, makes it into grayscale, so it turns it to a black and white picture. And then you have certain criteria where you say, okay, if it's more gray than this, turn it to black. If it's lighter than that, turn it to white. And so all your pixels on that picture frame become either black or white. Then they have algorithms that run through and say, if the pixels are all touching and there's a group of them, it's a pothole. If it's in a line, it's a crack. And so it's really pretty interesting how that process works. And they run it through that equipment, kicks it out and says, here's how you crack this. And so it's really, repetitive and good information. So we use that in the decision.
Does every state do it as well as we do? I mean, this is just amazing.
I don't know about other states. I'm not
Okay,
sure.
No, we do not. We're number one.
No, we're really the first ones to have started to use this LiDAR equipment because we're not only, we were able to use this to collect the pavement information because every state collects pavement information. But on top of that, we're collecting a lot more information out there that our regions are able to use to help make better decisions. It's pretty cool. There's other states that have followed us, as we said, but we've been doing it this way for probably 7 or 8 years.
With the LiDAR, it gets the pavement, it's getting the IRI, it's getting the LiDAR is really a cloud of information around you, and we use that to determine assets. You can pick up signs, pick up the striping, pick up the pavement. It does a lot of neat stuff. I have a video of the LiDAR truck running at the back, and it's just an FYI. If you want to click on it, you can. It's there if you want.
I mean, just say, I don't know about my fellow commissioners, but the main questions I get is, how come my teeth are jarring when I go down I-80, at 22nd, whatever. That's the kind of questions we get.
Yeah.
Road condition. It's great to have this to say.
That's a rough section of road. That section of I-80.
Bishop Bird, my teeth are
Yes, he did mention it.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, this is where the rubber quote meets the road.
Yes, it does. So back to your question, Commissioner Evans, on what is a preservation job. So over here on the side under the programs, you can click preservation, reconstruct, or rehabilitation. I'll just click preservation as an example. And then you have guideline for preservation projects, which is right there. And then here it talks about, I want to see if I was right, 1.5 inches. So that's 1.5 inches, and then here's some of the other criteria.
Well, collect that information electronically or whatever it is. It's not as labor intensive as we used to do, right?
Yeah, well, it used to be
more reliable.
It used to be inconsistent because what we would do is we would go out there and walk the first 1/10 of a mile and do a manual survey, and we found the data was all over the place because they were interns, and it'd be a different intern the next year compared to this year, and it was subjective. And so having the system, it's a little more expensive, but it really gives us some pretty good data.
I'm a little offended that you call me an intern. I remember doing that.
Oh, you did?
When
I did it, I wasn't an intern.
I was there.
I did it at Arizona Highway Department as an intern.
I thought they were mostly interns, but it sounds like we put some other people out there.
So, yeah, just one vehicle that does that, or multiple vehicles?
It's one vehicle.
Does that just, it just drives the whole state, it just roads in the whole state?
Yes. We covered the outside lane for the whole system. Some of our major roads we do both directions, negative and positive outside lanes, and then we relate that to all lanes.
It's that outfit looks like a SWAT truck, isn't it?
It does. Okay, so that's I think enough information to show you where the data is. I'm just going to skip to the presentation, and I'm going to fly through this because I'm going to skip some things because I think I've already covered it, but I do want to get to what was accomplished out of 2018. Okay, so that's kind of an overview. Right. Terms, so AADT, you guys know what AADT is?
Yes.
Okay, so you know that one, because we use that in our payments. High volume roads is the A to T, more than 1,000, low volumes less than 1,000. Vehicle miles of travel is basically take that ADT and times it by section length. That's what it is, and that's usually used to determine the amount of traffic in a geographical area. Like they'll say the state of Utah has so much VMT, or Utah County has this VMT. It gives you an idea of where the usage is. The others, I have some images, which I'll just go to. So here's a center lane mile.
Yeah, here's your Forrest Gump.
You know what? That's really what I was trying to get, was where Forrest Gump turned around. I thought that'd be a great picture to use down here, but this is the one I could find that was close enough.
He has a roundabout now that you can use. Got that.
We don't have that here.
So that's one center line mile, and it doesn't matter how wide the road is. You know, you could have 6 lanes. That one center line mile is still that thing. A surface area is 12 feet by 1 mile. So that's a surface area. And how do you relate that to when the road's wider than that? So here's an example where I included the shoulders. You've got 1 foot on one side, 2 feet on the other, so you got a quarter of a surface area more just because of that extra 3 feet, right? So that's 2.25 surface areas. So the pavement system as a whole is our largest asset that we have. To do a complete replacement cost would be $24 billion. About 70% of our total assets are into our pavement. This is off of our Transportation Asset Management Plan of 2018. If you look at the usage, again, this is back to that VMT, so it's the ADT times the system lengths. Almost 70% of all the traffic within the state on publicly available roads travel on the state system. The city and county make up about 32% of that, and then other would be like a Forest Service road or a BLM road, just a small sliver of the volume of traffic. So it's a very, very important system, and that's why we want to maintain it and take care of it and do it in the most efficient way. If you look at just the state system only, 2% is on the low volume, 95% of it was on the high volume. That was surprising to me. I didn't expect it to be that high. And then if you look at surface areas for the system as a whole, the low volume makes up just about 20 and 80 is on the high volume. Again, we break these down further. Each region takes care of their areas as far as what surface areas they have. You can look at Region 4. They talked about that in his presentation about how important the low volume roads were down here. They have, what's that? Percent-wise, I don't know, 64% of the low volume roads are down here in Region 4. And even if you look at the high volume roads, Region 4 does have quite a bit down there, and then the other regions are almost equally distributed.
So the classic region argument has been, the urban region directors say it's about people, and the Region 4 folks say it's about the length of their system.
Yeah, that's the land.
Okay, we covered that, so I'm going to skip through this on my presentation. We are meeting our targets for that. So skip that, and we talked about that, so I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to skip that. So let's go right to accomplishments. So this is looking at, and this is an interesting exercise. It depends on how you want to slice and dice this, depends on what you want to look at. So there are projects that were finished that were 2017 projects that were completed this year. I didn't look at those. There's some projects, 2019 projects that got completed this year. I didn't look at those. I looked at the 2018 program only and said, all right, what did we do for the 2018 program? So in the low volume pavement program, we had 6 projects that were advertised. To date, as of November 8th, it was 23.7 million expended, and centerline miles for those projects completed was 91 miles. If you look at the high volume system, we have both preservation and rehabilitation projects. So what's that, almost 60 projects in both of those programs. We're looking at almost $100 million worth and about 540 some odd miles of centerline projects. In the reconstruction program, this is one of those examples where it actually kicks in 2019. We went to the commission several months ago and combined one of the reconstruction projects into a project that was already there. Because of the cash flow, it was able to get started this year. And so this was one project that was actually advertised, which was originally the I-215 2200 North to I-15 project. And it's now, I believe, almost a substantially complete. I'm not quite sure on the status. About 10 centerline miles with the combined project on that. So something to look forward to for next year is we have 2 additional reconstruction projects that will be coming forward, and then you have the 2020 through 2025 projects coming out. And then capacity projects. In the 2018, we had 10 that were advertised expenditures, and this was as of October 23rd, just over 312 million, and it represents 96 centerline miles.
So Bill, the reason these are here then is because they were a capacity project, but we got the benefit of the paper reconstruction out of
Yes.
them as well.
Yep. Yep. And we do count those as the additive to the pavement condition. It becomes new projects at that point, or new condition. So funding needs, if you look at what we've been getting over the past in the low volume area, we've got that 40 million. We would recommend that that continue on at that 40 million. The high volume amounts, got a little bit of growth in 2020 and 2021. The reason that growth is there is to account for the capacity projects that actually add additional capacity to the program that have been going for a while. Some of those are now coming up due, and we need that additional funding to be able to maintain them at the same level as the rest of the system. And then the reconstruction program is at that 50 million a year. So we're recommending these funding levels to be able to still maintain the system.
And that 50 million, is that as a result of the new funding, is that right? Because it was 0 last year?
Go back, that was the 40 million shown in the low volume.
No, on the bottom.
That was the new gas tax.
Yes.
The other money is a combination of the revenues we're receiving off the existing gas tax as well as the federal funds. That's where most of the payment money comes from.
Got it.
Yes, yes, the combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is we saw this already, but this is the projection of the pavement condition in the high volume with the proposed funding levels.
So that's really our commitment to the commission. If funded at that level, that's the outcome we anticipate.
And then same for low volume. Again, this is to me this is just a great chart because it shows the benefit of the added money
Right.
that went in. You can see the amount of good increases, the amount of poor decreases.
Yeah.
Okay, we had a fairly recent new measure that came up called the Sustainability Index. Try to explain this if I can, the best way I can.
Fish.
So, fish. Yeah, so if you had 100 fish, no, I'm just kidding. What this is our whole system, if you summed up all the surface areas that we have, every year, all those surface areas decrease by 1 year, right? So if you take the surface areas times 1, you have a surface area a year. All of them are losing that pavement condition over a year. So we need to be able to put back into the system that amount of surface area benefit, right, in order to maintain a surface index of 1. And so that's what this is showing. This shows the system sustainability index based on what projects we have coming forward, whether we're going to stay above or not. 2021 is below because that program is not totally built yet. Once that program is built and we sum those numbers in, that's going to kick us up above that 1. So it's really
what do you
kind
need
of
by built?
programmed.
So we haven't come to the
commission to get the rest of those put in.
So the goal is to keep it at that 1 point.
Keep it above 1. Yep, that means we're replacing what we're losing, in essence. So, okay, so this is just the FYI, and I'm not going to go into these. You're welcome to click on any of these. These are YouTube videos of different surface treatments that we do. I know that from past experience coming in here, somebody said, well, what's a Dalbar retrofit, or what's a cold in place recycling, or mill and oval. These are little videos that show exactly what each of those are. want to do that, you can do. I will click on one. Let me see if
We could
there's.
spend all our weekends just laying out,
Let me-
playing on the
because-
website.
And I'm sure your family members would enjoy it as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll do this one and I'll close
Wait a
this
second,
one.
you don't?
When I can't tweet, this is where you can find me.
Quit, they're not gonna.
I will click on this one here and hopefully this runs for me. So this is the data collection that we use. Should open up a YouTube video. We'll see if it does.
The whole Waterloo video is probably taking a little more bandwidth.
Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna work. You might have to do it back home. All right, it's not gonna do it. And that is the end. So,
Are there any
questions?
other questions?
Cool stuff, Bill.
That was very comprehensive. Thank you.
Bill. Got our attention.
Sandy pavement's cool.
All right.
May I just ask one question? I spent a couple years of my life in Germany where they built really, really deep asphalt and everything else. They have to repair this often there because it doesn't seem like they do on those autobahns. Or are we doing it cheaper the first time and therefore have to do the restoration? Or if we put more money in at the outset, would it be a better long-term outcome for us?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know.
We do a cost-benefit analysis at the very beginning of the pavement design, and we say that we want our pavement to last 40 years, and in that 40 years, we're going to do this treatment, this treatment, this treatment. It just becomes a matter of return on investment. How much do you want to put up front? How long do you want the pavement to last? You can make it deeper, but it costs a lot of money up front, and it is cheaper to maintain over. So it's just a balancing act that goes into the pavement design in the very beginning.
And they have such a high tax on the gas that it does pay for that, as you know.
Part of our challenge is balancing a very large system and
Right.
letting part of that system go to pot to invest in just a higher cost. on a single
But you're right
project.
about the roads. They're amazing, I think.
Okay.
And we made some different decisions, like on I-15, the core project and the point and a couple of those projects. We have a 50-year payment out there, it's a 40-year payment. So
We know we're going to use it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen.
Well done, Bill.
Bridges. The structure, that's number one.
Yeah, last on the list.
But first, as Bill said,
First shall be-
38%.
Yeah.
Compared to 36.
Yeah, he's only 24 billion, this is where the real money is.
Right. Thank you for the opportunity to present the bridge program today. So just an update, the bridge program receives approximately $48 million a year. And that's divided between two main programs, as you can see on this outline. It's the bridge replacement and rehab program and the bridge preservation program. And within those two programs, we have sub-programs, which account for projects, but there's to address bridge inspections, load ratings, scour, mitigation, and maintenance. So I'm going to go through a few project highlights and then update you on our proposed program for the next STIP cycle. And there's one thing that I did add here, which is bridge collision and emergency. I haven't really talked about that topic before, but it was a big year for us. So I thought it may interest you on...
That's not necessarily a good thing.
It's not, but it may interest you on what we do in those situations.
Mm-hmm, she
Bridge
did.
drives into something.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah.
Those bridges,
Seatbelt.
they get away from us sometimes.
Seatbelts are...
So, to start out, this was a fun project, SR12. This is tunnel rehabilitation. So as you can see in the photos here, you can see the delamination of the shotcrete. And here's a picture of the rehabilitation. So what we did was really just replace those liners. We also installed some instrumentation in this project to monitor it long-term for movement and for water seepage. So we're going to be kind of monitoring these arches. Here's SR 113 over Provo River. This is up near Midway. As you can see, it may be difficult to see, but the bent is all corroded. The bearings are locked up and rusted. Edges were falling apart. And here's a few shots of what it looks like now. We encased that bent with concrete and cleaned up the edge deck area. And so really this was about substructure repairs and increasing the life of that structure. And please, if you have questions as I go through.
How long does that repair last?
Well,
Looks like a Band-Aid to me.
it's a Band-Aid. I mean, we would think probably at least 20 years.
Oh.
We would the substructure would be longer, but for the deck, we just have to monitor that.
I see.
That's where we have most of our issues are within the deck system.
After all, you gotta keep that safe down there so those graffiti people won't get
I
hurt.
They really like that bridge for some reason.
That's true.
Yeah. So this is I-70 at Cove Fort. Again, we repaired the substructure vents. You can kind of see the delamination areas in here. Pothole patching and put on a new overlay for this.
I have a question relative
Yes.
to that, Carmen.
Wanna go back?
Is your responsibility for the structure or for the part that we drive on?
The entire structure.
The whole thing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
As soon as you cross over from the highway to the structure part, that falls in that whole thing from top to bottom.
Okay.
This is SR 240 over I-15. This is a Honeyville interchange. This bridge was completely replaced. You can see the new bridge here. It looks lovely today compared to what it looked like before. So you can see this was the underside of the deck. You can see falling concrete. There's no bearing left here, and this is what the columns look like: cracked, exposed, reinforcing, and rusting. So.
Carmen, explain when you say underneath the deck, what are they seeing?
So
What's the concern?
So it's the effervescence and all the cracking, and you can see basically a lot of water seepage coming through the deck itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very happy to say that that bridge has been replaced. This is SR 102. This is up in Thatcher. And it's a relatively small bridge, but obviously you can see the concern here. Exposed reinforcing, rusting, concrete has already fallen off. It's canal structure, so you can see that it's starting to erode under the substructure here where the water comes in and swirls around and washes out the dirt around it and exposing the foundation. And so we went and replaced that, and you can see the new structure that's right there. I also kind of wanted to highlight, I'm not going to go into these specifically, but we initiated design, are in advertisement, and have awarded work on another 10 bridges this year. I also kind of wanted to show you this picture here. This is the Black Rock project that you're very familiar with from past commission meetings. It is the first bridge project that we submitted the model as the legal document. I believe it is the first in the country to do so. So very proud of the efforts that we're making in model-based design and construction.
So basically, instead of a plan set that we stamped and signed, we have a computer.
It's a computer model.
Of it. 3D model.
3D model.
Spin around and look at it. That is an engineer plan set now.
And the idea is the contractor can now reduce some of the bidding lists by getting better information to be
Yep, and so we have a couple more projects that we're going to do that as well.
Just west of Saltaire.
Okay, moving on to the 2023 program. What we're proposing for that you will see in the at the workshop is 28.8 million. This is funded between projects, in-service bridge inspection program, and the load rating maintenance program. Again, this program is to ensure safety and really address the poor bridges that we have. As part of that project, you will see this I-84 over the Weaver River, UPRR, and you've seen this in the past. The total project funding amount is 36 million, and we've cash flowed that through 3 years. So 5 million in 2021, 15.5 million in 2022, and now we would be requesting the rest of that 15.5 million in this 2023 program. And that is to replace these structures. You will see this I-80 Emory interchange, and this will be a bridge deck replacement project. You can see again in these photos here. This is the underside of the deck again. Spalled concrete, rusting, reinforcing. You can see all the effervescence coming through on the bottom of the deck, which is all the white that you see. And so we'll be doing a deck replacement on this. The deck rating right now is a 4, which is poor condition.
Out of 10?
Out of 9. So 9 to 7 is good, 5 and 6 is fair, and anything 4 or below is classified as 4.
Okay. Scale doesn't matter when you say a 4. 4 out of 100 is good.
Well, I knew it wasn't good.
4 out of 5.
Okay, this is Adams Avenue, I-84 bridge. This will be a deck replacement as well. You can see it's showing signs, not as bad as what you've seen in other photos, but by the time we get to this bridge, we expect that it would deteriorate more, and so we wanted to go ahead and put it on the program. This is SR-16, a bridge in Rich County. This bridge, you can see what's interesting about this one, it had an asphalt overlay. And the region wanted to do a preservation project in 2017 just to replace the asphalt overlay. And they got into the deck, and it just, you can see in this photo, just started falling apart. And so we took a step back. They kind of cleaned it up what they could, and we're going to go back in and put a deck replacement on it.
Nice round number. Oh, another one.
Yes.
You know, it's great not to have the sense there at the end. You know, there's a few of those that still.
Yeah, I know.
They still sneak up on you.
Thank you for saying that. I know you wanted us to round it with, so I made the comment.
And there's familiar.
Yes, I'm supportive of it. Keep going, Carmen.
Okay, I'm moving on. This is SR-30 over the Bear River, again, bridge rehabilitation. This will be a deck replacement as well. Again, same thing, a ton of pothole patching on the upper side of the deck. You can see in these pictures over and over on the underside, so this is up for a deck replacement as well.
And how old was that bridge roughly, or is that bridge?
Let's see, it was constructed in 1941.
Oh my.
So.
It's older than me.
Yeah.
They all are.
You know, I mean, the decks are really what we monitor the most.
Yeah.
Right.
So for the bridge inspection program, and it's funded through the replacement rehab program, it's at $2 million annually. Routine inspections are completed every other year on the structures. We have 3,011 bridges that are inspected. 1,959 are state-owned and the rest are local. So again, what we do within this program is to ensure the safety. We upgrade the condition data. Every time we go out and inspect it, it gets updated into our system. And then we use that information for planning. And then we also provide recommendations for treatments on bridges, and then we also support the region in that as well for their preservation projects.
And to the other 1,000 or so that are not state-owned, it sounds like you help the local governments with their rehab work?
Not for their rehab work.
But
we provide recommendations to them what they should be doing for their structures.
And we rate their structures as well?
Yes, we inspect all the bridges in the state.
Okay,
so we support them.
There's art on that bridge. That's cool.
Yeah, this is when Commissioner and I went out, and we took a picture right before, and then we were in that bucket that you see back here.
Oh, the bucket.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to get in the bucket, just let me know.
Well, I left the the board for the Utah Arts Council and the Museum of Services, or Office of Museum Services, and they are always interested in helping what we do on the roadways look more beautiful. So keep in mind we have partners who would like to make art happen as we improve bridges or sound panels, different things.
Yeah, a lot of contractors are the ones who do that, not us.
Yes, they do. So here is the Bridge Health Index, and I apologize, it's kind of hard to see in the graph.
Every picture she's shown you will give you a sense that we're in trouble.
Yes. I'm not here to scare you at all. It's not the case. So this is the graph we monitor the bridge health with, and this is showing right now condition data based on decade. There are 10 bridges, if you count them up, that would be in the red. You can, again, I apologize, it's hard to see from this graph. That would be rated in red in the poor condition. All of those have been programmed for either some type of rehabilitation or replacement, and I honestly don't think there's probably another state that could say that for the condition of their bridges.
I don't think any bridge engineer across the country has apologized for not having enough red on the graphs. You can't see it. Yeah, that's a really good thing.
But, and another thing to point out, like what we really monitor are all these bridges in yellow. Because those, and that's where we're watching those decks, because that is when it would go into the red.
1910. Good
So the
Lord.
same philosophy applies here that Bill went over in the tables. Good bridges do cost less, and if we can get them before they go into red, we save money.
And so that's why you'll see a lot of the rehabs and preservation activities happening, or more rehabs in the yellow and a lot of preservation on the bridges that are in the green.
So,
the low rating maintenance program is also funded at $300,000 annually. And right now, there is currently 17 bridges that remain recommended to be load posted that came out of that. So, in general terms, you have to load post a bridge if it doesn't rate load carrying capacity if it is under 36 tons. And so we went through and we load rated every bridge to see what its load carrying capacity was. And of that, on the state-owned bridges, we have 17 that remain as a recommended that we post them for lower than that 36 tons. It is kind of a goal for us that we do not want to be load rating or load posting state-owned bridges. And so right now, what we use this maintenance program is to evaluate those 17 and develop next steps on what we do. Do we do more of a refined analysis? Or do we start looking at strengthening those bridges and doing rehabs on them? And so that's kind of where we're at right now, and that's what this funding goes to, is to see what we can do to not have to load post those 17 structures.
Carmen, when you load test, do you take a heavy specified load, put it on the bridge, measure deflection, is that?
Yes, that's what we do, and the stresses. So when we do an actual load test.
That load would be a considerable fraction of what you would expect.
Right, so it's weighed before we even drive it across, and we'll drive it across at we know exactly what the load is, drive it across at different speeds to see how the bridge itself reacts. And then we would measure the deflection and the stresses within the structure.
You know what the original deflection would be based on the original design parameters.
That's correct.
And so when you exceed that by a certain level, that's how you rate it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So do you draw straws to get to see who drives it across? I'd be nervous.
Those are interns.
There's where you get interns.
Yeah. Moving on to the bridge preservation program. Work was completed on 41 bridges, and work includes hydro demolition, overlays, joint repairs, bearing repairs, scour mitigation. But that's the type of work, the smaller type of work that happens within the preservation program. As part of the 2018 program, we did do one scour mitigation. This is US 191 over the San Juan River, and here you can see, water just meanders, and you can see that it started to erode out the embankment here. And this is the project that we went in and heavily loaded it with large rocks and riprap through this section. There are actually 4 state-owned bridges that are kind of rated as a critical that we monitor. And we always monitor scour, just because you never, as you can see here, you don't really know what the river or waterway is going to do. So this year we're going to move forward our 2021 program and 2022 program in preservation. We've set aside of that 48 million, 15 million in 2021, and for the 2022 there's about 28 million. The reason for the 28 million in 2022 is that we are planning to overcoat or repaint the structural steel girders in the spaghetti bowl, which is a very expensive preservation work to do. And so that's why you see that number more in that year than you probably have in the past.
So we opened that project May of '01. Give you an idea of the time.
And so again, just wanted to let you know, like, the work that is happening in this preservation program is the structural pothole patching, some hydro demolition, the overlays, parapet repairs, smaller items like that.
Hydro demolition, I don't want to keep this going too long, but what is hydro demolition?
Hydro demolition is when you have, basically it's water pressure at very high rate, and it just blows up the concrete for the most part. I think it's at about 29,000 PSI that comes out water pressure. And so what we do is we take the top layer of concrete off of the bridge to an inch below that top mat of reinforcing, and then put back a whole new overlay. And really the whole point of that is, instead of getting a 10 to 15 year life out of some deck treatments, we're really looking at 25 to 30 for that.
And when you've taken that top layer off and exposed all the rebar like it shows in the picture, does the hydro demolition tend to prepare the rebar to bond to the new concrete, or do you have to treat that somehow?
It's cleaned, and then if there are, say if it's epoxy coated, it's patched. So it's cleaned so that it has a good bonding surface.
And so that's inspected, and
yes,
if it's determined to be in good condition, then you just put the overlay.
Yes. And in some instances, there'll be reinforcing that we have to remove and replace, just depending on what it looks like when we get in there.
But that's a really important point, that those inspectors make those decisions, because you can't tell until you take the top cover off.
Yeah.
But getting that piece right is really important.
Yeah.
Seems like that rebar be reduced in diameter, reduced strength. It was very bad.
And so that is another reason sometimes we have to replace sections based on that deterioration. So we have to make the call once it's exposed, because we don't know what it is till we get there. This is kind of a new program. This is bridge maintenance. This was really established to help the regions address critical bridge needs. So we set $500,000 out of that, the bridge preservation program, to really go out and help the regions do pothole patching and small, parapet repairs on structures. And it's kind of through procurement, and so it's separate than doing like an advertising project. And we found this works really well in working with the regions and getting work done quickly. And we were able to help with 13 bridges with this program this year.
Lucky 13.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, we really try to look at working on about 100 bridges a year is in that ballpark goal. Okay, so this is the new part, bridge collisions and emergencies, and I haven't talked about this before, but this year, as I said, was big. We had 7 bridges hit. I'm going to show you some pictures of some of them, so I'm not going to read these to you. But I think all of these happen within a month and a half, some a couple times a week. So this is US 40 over SR 248. As you can see, it was hit right here and damaged. And this is what it looked like once we repaired it. You couldn't even tell.
Who pays for that? I guess we always pay.
So we manage this through risk management, and insurance companies take over.
We go after them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes they go right on through and we don't know, and sometimes they get stuck and never
we know.
Yeah.
Put the hand on the picture,
Yep.
or they can't go anywhere.
But, you know, I mean, it does tell you what you can do with structures.
So is this people though, I mean, not paying attention to the height requirements?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is that, or it's construction equipment that,
A lot of times you'll see a backhoe, they don't lower it.
Yeah. I was on 7th East when a dump truck went by and took out a traffic light. I'm like, I couldn't believe it.
oh, yeah.
And I'm waving to him and he's waving back to me. I just couldn't
You
believe
always
it.
for that light.
Yeah, it was for the light.
well, what's interesting about this structure as well, the clearance on it is 17 feet 4 inches. And our standard is 16.6.
Wow.
So you know it had to be
Wow.
very high that hit that.
Yeah,
Okay.
somebody's cab was up or something.
Yes. So this is I-15
That
over
really
700
happened. I couldn't believe it.
south. This was a concrete girder. You can see it got hit and just blew out the whole diaphragm, and you can see we went in here and just repaired the girders and then put a new diaphragm in. Our over 31st ramp, you can see somebody just went in and we didn't even hear about this one. We went out to inspect the bridge and found it. So nobody even let us know that
Boy,
it
somebody has a dented plus.
Yeah, and here you can see what we did. Reinforced it with another plate, and then what they do for this is they heat straighten it back into place.
Oh. Plastic surgery.
Yeah, and here's a couple more bridges. You can see they got hit. We have exposed strand. All the concrete is spalled off. You can see that this one has low clearance anyway, lower than our standard, which is why they're always signed. And here, kind of the same thing on that structure. And then here's two more. All right. You know, a lot of times trucks will not make their turn and just actually end up on top of the barrier and take that out. And again, and this happens all the time. So people say bridges don't get hit. They're lying. They do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Then Carmen, what happens when the bridge gets hit, then one of your folks gets dispatched out?
Yes, so they get called out. We go out and inspect it to make sure it's still safe. In some instances, like with the steel girder bridges that you saw, we would go put like temporary barriers up to get traffic off of basically loading over that beam and redistribute the loads that way.
Thank you. That was terrific.
I don't know if you have any more questions?
No. I just.
You got a really interesting job, don't you?
Yeah.
I do. I love it.
It's great.
Bridges
Thank
are
you.
a lot of fun.
Thank you. So, on the informational items, you know, we have the next committee reports are contained, and we have the Christmas meeting. And at this time, I'd like to ask Carlos to say a few words since it changed last meeting. And everyone in here already knows it, but as public record, Carlos is the president of AASHTO now, which is extremely wonderful for Utah and prestigious. So, and it means, and for everyone that doesn't know the acronym up here, just tell them what the acronym is.
American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials. It's made up of the 50 states plus Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia are members. And it's really through, the association's been around longer than Federal Highway Administration, and it's really in partnership with Federal Highway Administration and AASHTO that all the highway standards that we use are developed. You know, so the way Carmen's folks design bridges, those bridge standards are developed through AASHTO, an AASHTO Structures Committee that she's one of the leaders on within that committee, and all the various, you know, how wide a traffic stripe should be, how bright it should be, all of that stuff happens.
I know, which I always have a problem with about colors.
And so really AASHTO is, it's got a technical side of it where it creates those standards and publications that are used around the country, around the world actually, by most road authorities use those standards. It has a policy side of the shop where the state DOTs will help advocate for a policy that at least 36 members, 36 of the 52 agree to, so it's a pretty high standard to be able to get that approval. And then they have a training element in which they help develop training for all the members as well. So it's a pretty big association. about an $84 million a year annual budget, and 140 employees, mostly in the Washington, D.C. area. But the largest business unit for Ashton was actually the material certification portion. And so they run an operation that will go and certify material labs. So when contractors are building projects and we're testing materials, the ARLM, which is this program for Ashton, they go out and they'll certify labs. And you have to have a certified lab, whether it's a public agency or a private agency that's doing these certifications. It has to come through a lab that's been certified. ASHTO does most of those certifications in the country for those labs. And that's where most of the employees reside. So thank you for that, Madam Chairman. Shane is not the only employee leaving. This is the time of year when it seems like a lot of employees make the decision to retire from the organization. And it's because they're allowed, they can take advantage of some of their accrued sick leave and annual leave in a way, because when you roll over to the next year, you lose it a certain limit. So we tend to see a big change during this time of year. We're going to see quite a few employees leaving. Shane has reached 25 years in August, and has looked at the financial side of things. One of the things Shane is always good at is the numbers. Math guy. And
a very long spreadsheet.
I have a big spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet says I need to do this. And when Shane has been convinced by a spreadsheet, it's hard to change his mind.
Very data-driven.
I asked
Not sexy.
I asked Shane to be deputy director in probably it was in the May-June timeframe of 2013. And when I made that decision, it was again a hard one. We had a lot of really great people. But it came down to his intuition. His first gut feel for things tended to be what I thought was correct. And he wasn't afraid to step forward and try new things. And I tend to throw a lot of things at our deputy directors. I like to have ideas. I don't have to actually do them. I can come up with those. And Shane caught every ball and ran with it. And so I'm happy for him that he's at this point. I'm sad for me. But I'm excited for the next phase, and I'm excited for Jason's opportunity here. Jason's going to do an outstanding job. And what we've seen with every one of us, and I'm sure you can relate it to, is every time you see somebody make a decision to move on, some of us always think, oh, well, it's never going to be the same. We're going to drop down. Every single time, if the organization is where it needs to be, the next person steps up. And I know that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a step up because this work Shane has done to prepare all of his leaders for this. We're not going to miss a beat with Jason. And I know Shane's going to be pretty proud about where we go in the future. Maybe we can give him a few minutes. I know he loves this. He's been dreading this.
I was good until like 2 minutes ago.
2 weeks. 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So I just get a text from Mr. Smartaleck back in the back. Meg has a box of Kleenex for Shane when he starts talking. It's true. Yeah. It's been tough too. So.
Oh well.
It's a tough decision, and the reason is because the people in this room, and all you included, you have been just incredible friends. And sucks, man. I'm glad the camera's that way. To be able to come to these and see the dedication of you all has just been impressive. I'm glad to be a part of it. Thank you for your commitments to us and the department and me over the last 5 years. And just thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We wish you well. We know you'll do well.
Thank you. And
I know the department will do well, even with Jason. No, but I had a teacher that always said one thing to me, and it didn't make sense to me till I was 40. Change is good even if it's bad. And I'm sure we'll see you in another capacity here.
I'm sure you will. I'm not going to miss a moment of Jason's time sitting
But, and we wish you and your family the best of luck.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Well, I think that the organization And as a taxpayer, I'm proud to say that we're well served in this state, and it's a credit to Carlos and his predecessor that this organization runs so well, and you get people like Shane and Jason and all the others, because the guy at the top sets a clear goal, and everybody gets on that page. And to me, that's really critical in any organization. And it's a hallmark in this one.
And with the diversity, so with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Is there questions on the Christmas?
Oh, the Christmas party, excuse
Do
me.
you have any instructions or any to add? You have invitations in your package?
Yes.
Beautifully done, I might add.
What we typically do is have our commission meeting. We're going to be in the UDOT facility. I understand they're implementing new security procedures that we're still trying to figure out how we're going to deal with the public on.
That's because of Shane.
Because of Shane.
Well,
I can't get back in.
will I get in? I never can get in. Remember, I always have trouble with that.
What is the schedule that day? Early in the morning we do our commission meeting?
We're going to do an 8:30 commission meeting on Friday. We do not typically have a Thursday meeting, so we have an 8:30 commission meeting. And then what we'll do is we'll, spend, depending on the time you worked, our commission meeting went longer last year than, we had thought. We would then kind of retire around the fireplace and allow the room to be converted into a lunch room from a commission room, and we'll do that quickly. And then, we're going to have it catered again. We've done this various ways, and I hope you don't mind doing that. It's a lot easier. We used to do potluck, and it was a lot of work that way. So
yeah.
Well, for
and
others.
so bring any partners, spouses that you would like. But it's a very casual and comfortable lunch.
Okay. Is there any other business?
Well, do you want to tell us about the giving tree?
Oh.
Is there a specific intention?
I thought he was gonna dress up like Santa Claus for this event.
And I wish I had Joe Walker here to talk about.
Yes, because
about the giving tree. I don't know if Shane or Terry has any information.
Well, if you get it, send it out to us.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
The
it.
idea is there
We
are
gonna do it.
trees throughout the department that people can come and take ornaments off and donate that item to whomever a few families that we've chosen. And a portion of the $20 would go to that kind of donation.
Yeah,
So-
we just gave the money last year.
Employees will, either their fellow employees, or we have employees that are struggling. And, there's always families that are having a hard time. So this is an opportunity for our employees to help them out.
Okay, happy to. Okay, with that, I need a motion.
So move.
Oh,
Second.
means you're done.
Amen.
He's got a few more weeks.